Democratic Senator Chris Coons is standing by live. He is a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, working late. The Senate is voting right now past the midnight hour. So thank you for staying up for us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Alex. Great to be on with you. Yes, we're going to be voting, frankly, all night on an irresponsible bill from the Republican majority, rather than agreeing with Democrats on modest, responsible reforms to how ICE and CBP conduct policing. Things like they should wear body cameras and identifying badges and use judicial warrants if they're trying to break down the door to someone's home. They're jamming through funding for ICE and CBP on the floor of the Senate this evening.
So, okay, so let's go there. And what we're looking at right now is a live picture of the Senate floor. You're literally just walked off the floor. There's a whole series of votes that happened tonight. But this all goes back to the idea of funding the Department of Homeland Security. We know it has not been fully funded since February 14th. If the Republicans all stay together and they pass their bill tonight in the Senate and they're all stay together in the House and they pass this funding on a party line vote using a process called reconciliation, if they're all together, is there anything that you all can do to stop it?
No. And that's why they're using this process. It is the one way that you can force through a bill in the Senate with fewer than 60 votes, is this reconciliation process. It's a special budget process. And it should not be used for this purpose, for appropriations. We hung together as a caucus and refused to fund ICE until there were modest, responsible reforms. Republicans in the Senate, we unanimously voted to fund DHS, except for ICE and CBP, and then the House rejected it. So it's been ping-ponging back and forth. This is Republicans' way of solving this without addressing the real problem, the cruelty and the violence that we all saw in Minneapolis that caused this impasse in the first place.
But you think the Republicans have the vote to ultimately get this thing through?
I don't think they would have started tonight if they didn't have the votes in their caucus. We're going to be staying up late, forcing votes on dozens of issues. I have an amendment, for example, with Elizabeth Warren that would hold ICE accountable and create a new accountability commission that would report back to Congress about the implementation of reforms. I also have an amendment I think I will get a vote on tonight on housing costs and on focusing on one of the key drivers of affordability, which is we're not building enough high quality and affordable housing either for rent or ownership. And that's why mortgage payments are too high, rents are too high.
There's a new poll out that shows about 1 out of 10 people think that Congress is doing a good job. Are you one of them? Do you think that's too high a number? 86% disapprove of Congress.
Look, what I think the American people are sick and tired of is division and dysfunction. And I continue to work across the aisle to introduce legislation and to get things signed into law. In December alone, President Trump signed 5 of my bills into law. And part of what I'm doing tonight is talking to my colleagues about measured, balanced, responsible legislation that'll address things from energy efficiency to housing affordability. But because there is so much division in our country and President Trump dedicates so much of his time to trashing Congress as well as breaking all of the guardrails in our system, I'm not surprised that we are not viewed positively by a majority of Americans.
Of course, one thing Congress has not voted on so far is the war with Iran. There was never a congressional authorization,
yes.
right? I mean, for the war itself. And now we are in a position where we are. So based off of where we are right now, what do you think is an off-ramp for the war that is acceptable to President Trump and Iran, where people can save face, but ultimately helps the United States and increases safety here?
Well, Alex, we did actually have a vote on the floor of the Senate earlier today under the War Powers Act on a resolution of disapproval that would have required the withdrawal of American troops from the theater. It was defeated. A majority of Republicans voted against it. But to your question about what's a responsible off-ramp, well, let's look at where we were before this war began. Iran had a large stockpile of highly enriched uranium, about 900 pounds of 60% enriched. It's still in Iran. We don't know exactly where it all is, and we don't have a method to get it out. A key piece of an acceptable off-ramp would be Iran being willing to allow back into their country again the inspectors that would find, identify, and isolate that, and their willingness to send out of the country for downblending and neutralization that stockpile of highly enriched uranium. Second, President Trump said help is on the way to the Iranians who were protesting in the streets, who were massacred by the brutal IRGC. We are no closer to having a free and open Iran. There's an Ayatollah, but he's the son of the former Ayatollah, and the IRGC is still fully capable of oppressing their people. Biggest change since this war began, the Strait of Hormuz now closed. And yes, we've dropped a lot of bombs on ballistic missile launchers and sunk a lot of Navy ships, but Iran's prepared for this exact conflict for decades. It was entirely foreseeable that they would use small, fast boats, that they would use cheap drones in order to attack us and our allies, to broaden the conflict in order to shut down the Strait of Hormuz and impact the prices we pay at the pump and the costs for energy worldwide. So to me, there's going to be a very hard negotiation here where President Trump's going to have to make some concessions and likely enter into a deal that will look an awful lot like the Obama-Iran deal that he so derided. I'll remind you, President Trump often attacked Obama's Iran deal because it resulted in Iran getting back about $1.7 billion of its own money that had been frozen for decades. In the last few weeks, President Trump, because he waived sanctions on Iranian oil, has flowed billions of dollars, roughly $14 billion, into Iran's economy. You don't have to read The Art of War to know it's not a great idea to help more money go into the coffers of two countries, Russia and Iran, that are currently engaged in brutal conflict. Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine got new life because the Trump administration also waived sanctions on Russian oil. They did this because they were trying to avoid a price spike at the pump here in the United States. It hasn't had that effect, but it has put huge amounts of money into the pockets of Vladimir Putin and the Ayatollah.
Do you think that the blockade that the United States is currently putting forward is effective at decreasing Iranian leverage and increasing American leverage and potentially really hurting, squeezing Iran's economy?
It is certainly smarter than going into the Strait of Hormuz and trying to take it over by sending ground troops, Marines, or the 82nd Airborne to try and occupy that part of Iran that is right next to this very narrow strait. And it is certainly easier than sending in minesweepers or trying to clear the strait of mines. But it's a war of attrition. This blockade is assuming that by cutting off new oil revenues to the Iranian regime, they ultimately, in weeks or months, will cry uncle and come to the negotiating table. But there's a key difference between our society and theirs. The Ayatollah and the IRGC are not interested in the opinion of their people, and they will absorb a lot of suffering, probably more than we will. And that's one of my core concerns, is that we need to be prepared for higher oil and gas prices, for higher fertilizer prices for a long time to come, if that blockade is ultimately the tool that President Trump intends to use to bring Iran to the negotiating table.
And lastly, how late do you think you're going to be there tonight? And what do you do to keep yourself up late at night? Is it sugar? Is it caffeine? Is it just naps? What's your strategy?
I do TV interviews. That helps keep me on edge. Yes, I need a cup of coffee here pretty soon. The over-under in the informal, casual betting pool or conversation among senators is somewhere between 3 and 4 this morning. You know, look, I'm relatively young for a senator. I'm in my early 60s. There's a lot of folks I serve with in their 70s and 80s, one in his 90s. This is a pretty brutal way to jam through funding for ICE without needed reforms, because this process only ends by exhaustion. It will only end when a majority of the senators say, we're done, we don't want any more votes, we all want to go to bed. And bluntly, it's good to have a chance to explain this to your viewers and to tell them that what's going on here is a basic fight over values. Is the Trump administration, the Republican majority, willing to reform ICE and make it follow the same rules as state and local law enforcement all over the country? Nope, they're willing to keep us up all night to jam this funding through.
Well, Senator Chris Coons, good luck staying up. And if you want to encourage any of your other friends that they want to do TV interviews as well, we're here for the next couple hours.
I'll send them your way.
We appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Alex.